Guess the easiest way to say that, Mitch, is I spent for a good 10, 12 years working in the petrochemical sector. So quality management, work health and safety, environmental, very, very important, within that particular sector. I'm very compliance driven. Even though I come from a HR background, compliance has become so important. So for me, helping organisations set up their systems so they've got that point of difference, they can improve their efficiency. There's so many different reasons why they would look to get accredited. But also it's nice to be able to sit down with some organisations and say, actually, something, maybe you don't need to go that far. Maybe we can just do something else. So it's a question of really providing organisations with a direction. And I think for me, again, it's all about helping people, helping organisations. I've had probably half a dozen NDIS organisations now that have decided they want to be 9001 accredited. I've had probably the same number of aged care organisations as well. Okay, there's probably a number of reasons. And if I break it down into sectors, NDIS and aged care are quite often saying we want to be able to demonstrate to our participants, the people that we look after, that we have a decent quality management system to back up our services. So that's all about providing a point of difference. For a lot of other organisations, it's about how do we streamline, how do we save money, how do we save time. So that's another reason. For some, it's, hey, we need to have this as a requirement of government tenders or defence contracts or similar. For other organisations, they will look at it and go, we just want to have this on our website because it's something that our clients respect. So it's all about giving that real positive feel about them. Hey, if you've gone to the trouble of becoming accredited, then you must be committed to providing a quality product which will bring additional clients in. So that's the one reason that I got accredited as a company, for the simple reason I wanted my clients to be able to see that I'm very, very serious about the services that we provide. Okay, so to break it down, first things first, usually from a client's point of view, it's, well, can I do this using internal resources? If I can, great. I don't need to find a consultant. I can just do it myself. Some people will send off employees to training with BSI, SI Global, maybe even lead auditor training, because one of the components of the standard requires internal audits be done. And you can have external people come and do it, but it's actually better if you can do it yourself. So once they've decided how they're going to go about it, if they then need to find a consultant, they can go and find a consultant through any one of different ways. They can come to SafeRight and ask for a recommendation. They can go to auditing companies and ask for recommendations. Once they've done that, it then really is a question of sitting down and saying, well, okay, where is our business now? Where do we want it to be? How are we going to get there? For some organisations, that requires developing a brand new business plan, or actually developing a business plan because they didn't have one. For some organisations, it's, well, we've got all that in place. We now need to talk to our consultant and find out next steps, which typically is, let's develop a manual and then go through it, take it to the management team, make sure that that manual reflects what they're actually doing. So for example, there's no point an NDIS provider having a whole bunch of stuff that relates to manufacturing. However, having said that, I've currently got a very unique situation where I've got an NDIS, an aged care provider and youth provider. And as part of the youth works, they do a lot of work with cars, with the young people from high school. So there's a real blend of what has to be done. So that's what I'm saying. The manual needs to reflect what the company is all about. Once that is done, we gather whatever evidence is required, and then we go look for an auditing body, whether that be BSI, SAI, GCC. They're probably the main three that come to mind, or PricewaterhouseCoopers obviously would be a fourth one, but they're the main four that sort of come to mind. Okay, so there are two stages. Stage one, which is purely a documentation review. Okay, so the auditor will want to go through the manual that's applicable to the standard, make sure that all the clauses are addressed. Then they'll go through the key supporting documentation. So they will want to see HR, personnel files of staff to make sure that everything is there. They will look for service agreements between the company and any suppliers that they may have or clients that they may have. That's where some clients get a little bit iffy, say, hang on a minute, this is strictly confidential information. The auditors sign a confidentiality agreement anyway, and we'll delete any access to any information once the audit's complete. Then they'll go through and look for the key documents like the business plan and so forth. Stage two is all about evidence. Okay, so in other words, if your manual says you do this, the auditor will say, well, show me. Your manual might say, for example, that you do internal audits every 6 months. Again, the auditor will say, well, show me evidence of those internal audits. You may say that you do random or ad hoc assessments of suppliers. Again, show me. Where is it? Okay, so really, it's not enough for a client to say, I'm going to engage a consultant to write my manual. If they're not going to read it, they're going to get caught out in stage two, because the auditor is going to say to them, where's your evidence? And if they haven't read the manual, then obviously there's not going to be any evidence unless the consultant has basically walked them through this, hand in hand. Right, the manual says you need to provide this evidence. Do you have it? Yeah, and I find there are some clients that I have to do that with. Probably more so health-related clients than engineering clients. Engineering clients I tend to find are very, very logical and very process-driven. Some of the NDS providers with a lot less experience, doesn't happen. If you've got NDS providers with a lot of registered nurses, then it's all about process and compliance. So a lot of the time, their level of readiness is going to depend on what their background is. Okay, so there is an annual review. So the auditors will come out and usually about half a day, depending on the size and scope of the organisation, just to make sure that the system is actually being used. If they discover that the system's not being used, then accreditation won't be continued, and they'll have to go back through the process all over again. And that is a very extreme step. It's not something I see happen very often at all. And one of the things that I personally found very helpful when I went through my audit was everything's in one place. I was able to provide a username and a password to my auditor in stage two and say, right, everything is there. If you have trouble finding it, let me know. I think I got about 2 calls during the course of the day where he couldn't find something. So I was able to show him initially, well, this is where the manual is. Here's where all my supporting policies, procedures, forms are. You're looking for a risk register, great, that's down there. The business plan is here. All the other company documents that you might want to look at were there as well. So it's really about saving time and process and having that level of efficiency and effectiveness within the system. Because there's no point having the system there if it's just to tick a box. If it's to tick a box, save yourself the money and don't bother. A lot of my clients, when they come to me, they're not ready. And that's where it comes down to sitting down with them and working out how do I help them as a consultant get ready. You know, I mean, we talk, as consultants, we talk about value adds. If accreditation was as simple as here's your manual, here's your supporting documents, here's all the evidence, off you go and go through the audit, everybody would do it. But the simple fact of the matter is a lot of people, by the time they come to me, they're not ready. You know, they don't know what they need. They don't know what evidence they need. They don't understand the standards have a simple clause that says the company shall. Everywhere you see that, it's a mandatory requirement. Yeah, so quite often I'll sit down with my clients and say, go through this checklist. If you can say yes alongside all of those, we can go through audit tomorrow. Where the gaps are, so this is like almost just like a standard gap analysis to go through and understand what's missing. Usually for me, it's let's find out about the organisation. Where did they start? Let's have a look at your business plan, assuming it exists, so that we can then get an idea of where they want to go. Once I've done that, I'll usually go out for a site visit. I've got a manufacturing company who's doing all three, so 9001, 45 and 14, out in WA, basically in the middle of nowhere. So I have to go out there, have a look at what they do, how they operate, get a really good feel for what's happening within the organisation. And of course, you want to ask the key question: why? Why do you want? I get 9001 with most companies, but then it's, well, why do you want to do the other two? And then it's a question, so, well, okay, these are some of the key things that we're going to be looking for in terms of evidence. Do you have them? And then it's really a question of saying to your client, look, don't be embarrassed if the answer's no. You just need to tell me what you've got, what you haven't got, and that way we know what we can build up. Okay, so once we've actually either been out to site or we've had meetings through Teams or Zoom or whatever, my first step from there is to do a draft of the manual. Now, in some cases, I've had organisations use the policies and processes that are in SafeRight. In some cases, I've had people say, look, I've looked at it and gone, yep, the SafeRight one's great for manufacturing, that type of thing. I move into NDIS side of things and I've got to rejig it, which is fine, that's not a big issue. But once I've done that, I'll then get them to go through and review and say, well, does that reflect what you actually do? Once we've done that, is then a question of, all right, stage one is nothing but a document review. However, is there a business plan there? Are there position descriptions? How's all the HR documentation for your employees? All of that sort of stuff we still need to have ready for stage one. So I do find the majority of my clients, it's business plan. No, don't have one of those. So we usually find that has to be done. That again, SafeRight, we've got a brilliant tool to develop a business plan. Nice, quick, short, sharp and easy. And then it's really a question of what other systems they have in place from a HR perspective, from a work health and safety perspective. So if we can do a bit of a value add, that's always there as well. Well, funny you should mention it. I've just recently gone through ISO 9001 accreditation myself. I make a point of using the SafeRight tools. For me, easy to keep my policies and processes, easy to keep all the registers that I need, all the company information. So I can just basically go to the auditor on the day of stage 1, here you go, here's your username and password, go have a look. And I've done that with several clients now, and the auditor's feedback has been nothing but positive. They find documents are easy to find, information is easy to find, they like the registers, they really love the feature where you can enter your risks and then develop swims from that. They love that idea. Yeah, so makes it easy to turn around to my clients and say, great, okay, well, this is what I recommend you use. It's also ISO 27001 compliant, so there is a big tick from that point of view for them as well. So, yeah. It's funny you should mention that, because I got a phone call from a client this morning. Paul, hey, we got our accreditation 3 or 4 months ago, but we don't really think that we're following what we should be. So there is that opportunity to help them actually with the implementation phase. Then you'll get, some of them will say, oh, we're not really sure that we're understanding what we should be doing with SafeRight. Can you either spend some time with us online, or when you're out here next, can you show us? They're quite happy to attend the training, which is run. But I think sometimes they'd like someone to be sitting over their shoulder, sort of showing them, well, this is where you go, this is what you do. And once you start to show them that, it's great. But I think it's ongoing training. There's another opportunity there, just in terms of, well, what does this ISO 9001 mean? What should we be doing different? Yeah. Absolutely. May this year, I had a client refer to me. They needed ISO 9001 for government and defence tenders and so forth. We turned that accreditation around in 6 weeks. Not the recommended time frame. They usually like to go about 60, a good, 180 days is what they like to do. No, we used Mouse for that particular client because there was nothing in place. There were a few Excel registers and that was it. So to actually take them from, okay, there's nothing in place. And what I loved about them, they were so open. They just turned around and said, no, well, look, just assume we've got nothing. And we basically built the entire system from scratch. The directors were so happy with that outcome. Now we've got 2 more standards to do, potentially 3 if they choose to do 27001. Because it gives me the opportunity, if they're saying, I think I've done something wrong, I can usually log in. It's an easy fix to sort it. And that helps build the relationship between consultant and client. And realistically, any decent consultant knows it's all about building relationships. Yeah, what I'm finding is ISO 9001 seems to be where they all start. And then, they'll go through that, and some of them will go away and do lead auditor training courses, and they'll discover that, oh, hang on, there's this thing called ISO 27001 about information security, which the NDIS aged care providers, that is critical. Then you'll get some, I had a referral to me this afternoon for a chemical manufacturer who's looking for becoming accredited in ISO 14001, the environmental standard. So I tend to find what happens is they'll go for ISO 9001 first, and then we'll actually progress on to doing others. There was a client actually in Brookvale that I got through ISO 9001 this year, and they are looking at doing 45001 and 14001 in January. So hopefully not in the same shorter time frame, but yeah. Okay, so I'm an accredited ISO auditor in 9001, 45001, 14001. I also do training on the risk management standard and the mental health standard 45003 through PricewaterhouseCoopers and SIA Global. Both have slightly different approaches, but the key things are the same. What we're saying during stage one is we want to see that your systems are in place. Not interested in evidence. I want to see that there are systems in place and that those systems meet with the requirements of the standard. What I usually say to my clients is you've got to remember when you review a standard, everywhere it says the organisation shall, that is a mandatory requirement if it is relevant to your business. So we have checklists for the clients to go through those. As an auditor during stage one, it's not my role to come up with a whole bunch of non-conformances. I can come up with a lot of opportunities for improvement, but my role at the end of stage one is to be able to say, I recommend you to progress to stage two, or I think you've got some additional work to do still. Stage two is all evidence-based. Stage two is fundamentally, your manual says this, show me, okay? Your HR policies say you do this, show me some evidence. Yeah, it's all about the evidentiary side of things. The opportunities for improvement for auditors are a nightmare because we're not allowed to consult. So it's a very, very fine line. So really what we're doing is going through and identifying something that we think they could do better. And that might be, we might identify gaps in their business plan. We might identify that there is a gap in the system, which means we're not gathering all the information on, let's say, suppliers. You've got suppliers coming in. I might say to them, well, okay, do you have a supplier register? No, we just have relationships with our suppliers. I go, well, do you think it would be a good idea to document the suppliers and maybe do a bit of a review? And the response 9 times out of 10 is, actually, that's a good idea. We should do that. So that's the way I would, because then I'm not consulting, I'm not telling them how to do it. I'm just saying, do you think it would be a good idea? So, again, I keep saying to my clients, I'm not here to fail you. My role as an auditor is to help you get through the process and get accreditation. When I when I move out of the NDIS sector, because there's not a lot of other software packages around, which the type of organisation I work with is generally small to medium size. So in terms of for them, it's probably saving them probably half the time that they would have had to have spent in terms of developing systems, spreadsheets, reporting lines, all of that sort of stuff. Because what people forget is that SafeRite has the capacity to develop reports, which can go to the management team, the board of directors. 9001 has a major requirement that the management team must be kept in the loop, must have meetings. That's saving hours and hours of time. Okay, so for me, I'm looking to understand what type of business am I dealing with. Okay, so for example, a quote for a business working in the petrochemical sector is going to be a lot more complicated than, say, a manufacturing business. Where we've got issues around information security, then those are some of the things that I look at, because it means our manuals need to be maybe a little bit more detailed, a little bit more information, which of course will increase the price. I'm looking to see, as I mentioned before, is there a business plan in place? Sometimes, on very rare occasion, you may get both a business plan and a strategic plan. So you've got someone saying, well, this is where I want to be and this is how I'm going to get there, which is great. Doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does happen. I'm looking to see what other systems are there. Is it just a question of there are a whole bunch of practices that I need to convert to systems? Or are there no practices at all, and this basically means we are starting from scratch? Those are the sort of things I'm looking for. So what I would usually do with my clients is, look, if there's no business plan in place, I'm happy to give you some structure, and you can go and write it yourself and save yourself a few grand. That's one way. In terms of developing the manual, I usually find most of my clients, with all due respect, and don't know where to start. You find some of them may say, oh, we need to have HR documents. We can probably write those, and they'll go away and do that. Occasionally, you will get the odd client that will turn around to you and say, just make it go away. Just get us accredited. Don't care what it costs. Don't care what time it takes. Just do it. Again, I've had a few of those this year, but they don't come along that often. Realistically, there's a lot of basic stuff that they can set up. Registers, for example, they can set up. They can actually go through and prepare the evidence. Okay, so it could be as simple as a training and development register. They can go through and set that one up. Saves me doing it. Yeah.